So the PTB for the new chapter End Transmission is out now, and I got to play a couple matches as the new killer, the Singularity, and I am here to tell you that it's pretty cool. I think the killer, the Singularity, is probably the best killer we've received since Wesker in terms of design, in terms of lore, in terms of power, gameplay. Everything about this killer is pretty good for Behavior's first legit attempt at an original sci-fi chapter. I like the look of the killer, I like his voice, little robot voice, and for the most part I enjoy what his power brings to the table. Essentially, the Singularity can shoot these globs that stick to walls and act as cameras. From anywhere on the map you can view these cameras, and if a survivor is in the camera's line of sight, they will be marked. Once the survivor is marked and all gooped up, if they're scanned by the camera a second time, the Singularity will instantly teleport next to them, and after a little cooldown he can attack. He will also enter this state called overclock mode, which makes him impossible to stun, and he will vault and break pallets, walls, and generators really quickly. Now, of course, this power has a bit of an infection aspect, where if you scan a survivor and they're next to another survivor, they both get scanned, yada yada yada. And the Singularity can actually shoot his globs at a survivor who is marked to teleport instead of having to do the whole camera thing. So his power has a lot of potential for some really cool plays. However, this chapter is now without faults, and that's what I'm going to get into right now. First off, let's talk the map. Visually, I think the map is amazing. I think Behavior really outdid themselves with all the little details. The map is super cool to look at. Gameplay wise, it is an absolute nightmare. As a killer, tracking in this map, for me at least, is virtually impossible. There is just too many walls, too many little corners. There's just a lot of stuff in the way that affects tracking. Scratch marks are extremely hard to locate on this map, and survivors have a ton of little walls and corners and alleys that they can take to break line of sight. And especially with a killer like the Singularity, who relies heavily on line of sight, this map is an absolute nightmare to play on. In terms of its strength, just off the density alone, I will have to go ahead and say that this is a survivor-sided map. This map is a pain to play on, but not in the ways that other maps are a pain, where there's just a ton of pallets, there's a ton of strong loops. This map is just confusing as heck to play on, and I really think it needs some changing before it goes to live servers. There is just way too much stuff on this map. It is all very clumped together. In terms of the killer himself, the Singularity, he's gonna take a bit to get used to. The way his camera controls and the way it kind of automatically shifts to a direction, it's really hard to really pinpoint the camera, and also the hitbox for it is very janky. You will feel like you should be able to scan survivors, but you can't. And the scanning itself, while it is insanely quick, survivors do definitely have quite a bit of time to duck behind cover, and again, with the janky hitboxes, they will sometimes avoid the scan altogether. However, once they are scanned, their mark does last a little bit, so if you are able to get into chase with them and you are able to land a shot, you should be able to catch up extremely quickly. I think this killer has a very high reward and satisfactory effect to him that makes you want to actively use his power and get good at it, because he can just teleport behind survivors really quickly if you know what you're doing. And I can definitely see a lot of high skill players really use this killer's ability to its full potential. His perks are really nothing to write home about. They're really boring, and I haven't even looked at the survivor perk yet, so I really have no idea how the survivor perks work. I would have to say that End Transmission is a pretty cool chapter. I think the Singularity is a really cool killer, and he's definitely fun. With his janks and issues aside, the killer is definitely fun and satisfying to play once you get the hang of him. Definitely changed the map though. The map is really messy. But yeah, overall, this chapter is looking promising. And it better be, because the last two chapters were absolute dog.